And welcome back to Late Night Lately, the late night show. I'm your host, Chad White. If you didn't know, this is the late night podcast for the website cpluscomedy.com. Like I just said, it's a website. Go there. Episode 36 of Late Night Lately. It has been a very big week for the late night world, and let's just get to it. This week was the Democratic National Convention, and holy cow, did everybody have jokes. Obviously, two shows went live, obviously. The Daily Show was live at the convention with, I think, every correspondent save for Dulce Sloan. And because there's a point where I was like, does she still work there? Went to her Instagram and says she still works there. She's probably touring or something. And then Stephen Colbert show, The Late Show, was there as well, doing live shows, and it was so interesting. I think the live shows have their hits and misses, and I enjoy the aspect of change for late night shows, for shows that, you know, it's good to get out of this rut of every, you know, weekend, every day in, day out, rather, of shooting a show, telling the same jokes, same style jokes, and now doing it live in a different place. Because as much as I hate audience participation, and by that I mean the applause breaks, the copious amount of applause breaks for nothing, I do enjoy seeing Stephen and Jimmy Kimmel go to different places, and the Daily Show as well. I don't know how often Fallon. When's the last time that Fallon traveled? Probably a couple of years ago. Anyway, and even the idea that, we'll talk about this in a second, but doing a live. Oh no, we're doing that next week because I had to move ideas. But even the idea of doing, or move topics, even the idea of doing like a live episode just from your own studio is still good. So before we get to that, RuPaul hosted Jimmy Kimmel Live, and I'll tell you again, it's these. I'm glad he gets time off. Kimmel is baked that into his contract, whatever. I'm glad he gets time off, but it is. I've watched a lot less Jimmy Kimmel Live in this summer than I typically do. It's just for Ru, it's so interesting. Ru would be a great host, because watching Ru talk to people like, hold on, I have to triple check if Ru was actually talked to this person that I was about to name, but watching Ru talk to somebody like Maya Rudolph, yes, talking to Maya Rudolph was a great exploration in conversation, because he's just so comfortable and willing to, you know, just have a conversation, as opposed to even some late night hosts that can't really have whole conversations. I'm not going to point out who, or even some podcast hosts who can't have whole conversations. No, they host the Smart List podcast. But seeing Ru talk to people compared to doing a monologue is so different, because monologues, as I've noticed, are hard. Monologues are hard, and some people can't deliver those type of jokes. Some people are just not good at jokes. Period. And I noticed this week the monologues have been shorter and just involved a lot of bits and stunts, and which is just something I'm not into. But anyway, Ru talked to Maya Rudolph and Coleman Domingo and Sanaa Lathan. Is just a good week for that show, but just a different show. Even though I didn't watch everything, it's just a different show. Fred Armisen talked about making the 8G band over there on late night. This is their last week on that program, because is this not muting? Okay, well, I don't know what's going on. Because of budget constraints. So Fred Armisen was able to sit in with the band that he created for the last time, and it's it sucks that show has to go through that, but everybody's going through bad things like that in television. The 8G band also played with Bob Mould, who was an artist, a rocker, and it's so interesting when I saw Bob's name on YouTube TV on the thing for that. And I was like, oh my gosh, I know Bob. I listened to, I believe, the album before last. I don't remember. Anyway, almost every Daily Show correspondent was there for the DNC when they were doing live episodes. Jon Stewart was the anchor for this week. And I believe the first episode was Michael Costa. Second episode was Desi Leidig, then Jordan Klepper, and then Jon Stewart. And everybody else everybody did bits, essentially. Including, I don't know the rest of their names. I know Ronnie Chang, but I don't know everybody else. And Josh Johnson, because I talked to him twice. But everybody else was there too, except for Dulce Sloan. And then Stephen Colbert had his live events as well. Again, I didn't watch that much because I tried watching. I get people watch late night now on YouTube. I understand that. I'm a traditionalist. I watch it on YouTube TV. I record everything, and then I'll fast forward, into commercials or. I fast forward through the monologue and through interviews. I go straight into the commercials. I say, this is what I want to watch. I don't want to watch nothing else. You sell me something, you sell me it good. I fast forward through the commercials so I could get things live, and I think that's fun and interesting. None of the shows, obviously, that are on broadcast, because of the DNC, and it was live, and it was like 4 to 5 to 6 hours long sometimes. You just missed episodes entirely of shows. So I had to watch everything on YouTube this week. Poor me. And which means that I did not watch. And when I was watching, some Colbert monologue, and people were just clapping for him saying, I'm here in, we had Chicago pizza. What was that going to do? This comes from, so now we'll get into the stories. But Stephen Colbert talked to a lot of politicians, which was great. I like it when he talks to people who are in the industry, because he's very smart, and he can have conversations that, no offense, there's other hosts who they would talk to somebody, a politician or somebody, they're not good at. Not Seth, other people. Let's just say that there's 5 other shows. Just kidding. I'm just kidding. Michael Schneider at Variety wrote, behind the scenes with The Daily Show and Late Show as they energize the DNC with live episodes. If Colbert, for instance, if his show is set to go on at 11:30 and the DNC has been going from 6 p.m. until 11, then you have to do local news. That means that Colbert's Late Show has to go on air at 12:30 at night. That's just plain and simple. That's how it has to go. How do they keep their audiences, awake for that time, or ready to continue going? I clicked on this article and it's not loading up. Okay, here it is. Michael Schneider also wrote for Variety how Colbert's Late Show kept his studio audience entertained as Biden's speech and a lengthy DNC night delayed airtime. Like they went off the air at 1 a.m. Central Time. The Stephen Colbert Show. The Stephen Colbert Show. People wait for these tickets. They're just excited to even get in. You can't line up until 6 p.m., although on Monday, fans were in the line as early as 4:45. The show doesn't start until 11:35, which means 10:35 Central Time. Biden didn't start his speech until 10:30, which means the Late Show didn't start until 12 a.m. Central Time, which is 1 a.m. Eastern Time. The crowd was enthusiastic. They were there for it. The Late Show was at the Auditorium Theater, which holds about 4,000 seats, which is, boy, I couldn't understand even being. They would show the balcony sometimes, and I couldn't even believe it. Where was the Daily Show? The Daily Show apparently was very far away from the DNC. I'm at the other article now. The first one. Jen Flans, who's the executive producer and showrunner of The Daily Show, said she loves the live shows because they really infuse the energy of what just happened. But we're not a news show, and in order to comment on the news, you need a little bit of time to digest it and write a more focused take of what the previous night was. That's what The Daily Show does. They stay up all night and then regroup at 8:15 in the morning. Wow, it's crazy. Let's go back to this other article. I'm skipping through both. This is not giving me the information. As you can tell, I read through these previously. Nothing. This is not giving me anything that I needed. Wow. Okay, so when audience members, this is exactly what I thought was going to happen. At 8 p.m., audience members are basically sent to their seats. The show pipes in the convention for people to watch as they wait. The Late Show team is going live in order to react in real time, blah, blah, yeah, we know. When the DNC ends and the CBS goes to local news, that's when Late Show's warm-up comedian comes out and gets the crowd pumped. This is exactly what I thought happened. Why did it take so long for this article to get to this? Schneider, you're screwing up. So Michael Costa, he said it was humbling that going live in Chicago for these shows and talking to Gretchen Whitmer that's what happened. It was humbling for him. Didn't hit him until he was flying in, walked up the steps, and he was like, I was here 7 years ago as a brand new correspondent. Now I'm on the helm on Monday. 7 years from now, who knows where I'll be. The shows were, the live shows were well produced. Obviously, they have to be because you're doing this for, consumption of everybody around the world. But I think that theater that Colbert did it in was way too big. The balconies, the laughs didn't protrude as much. And I think the jokes were a little bit soft. But that's what happens when you do a live show. Because, again, you have to let it digest. That's what Jen Flans said. I think The Daily Show did it well. I think the jokes hit a lot harder. Mostly because that's what that show is allowed to do as opposed to a Colbert, a late show that they can't really go too much into, the black comedy territory. Everybody mostly commented on the same thing. I wonder, what it's like being a writer and sitting through Kamala's speech. And that's an hour long. And you have to parse out 30 seconds of what she said and make something funny with it. And how that works for them. I think these shows were well done. I don't necessarily know if Colbert's gone live a couple of times this year, and it makes me his audience is so into him. I think that they would just laugh. And the same thing for Stewart. I think that people would just laugh at anything that they say, and it was nice to see it happen. But it's in some ways, I was more enthusiastic about the first 3 days of the week for the Daily Show in particular, with Michael and Desi and Klepper, as opposed to even watching Stewart or any second of Colbert. But Colbert did have a chance to talk to Hilary Clinton. And if you've never been to a late night show, they basically shoot in real time. So if a show is like, if an episode is like 40 some odd minutes, they're probably shooting 40 to 20 minutes. 40 to 60 minutes. And with these live shows, you don't get all that extra stuff. If an interview was 10 minutes, it's 10 minutes live. If an interview was 10 minutes, recorded, then maybe it was 12 or 15 minutes and they just cut some stuff out. But you can only ask so many questions. And I think that's what the editing was kind of what was missing. Several minutes into his segment with Pelosi, Colbert, for Colbert's show, a protest with Nancy Pelosi. A protester began shouting from the balcony regarding the war in Gaza. Colbert had likely prepared for such a scenario and handled the situation calmly, including when it happened again in a second segment. Plenty of protesters were outside, obviously. They did have tight security, and they had to be ready for people doing stupid things. Comedy stuff. Hey, let's move on to this last one. This comes from Eric Deggans at NPR. Eric Deggans, a guy I spoke to for C+ Comedy on the Constitutionals. Under the interviews, as late night loses his band, we rank the best groups ever on late night TV. Again, I mentioned this previously. The HG band is leaving the late night with Seth Meyers. They'll be making some, pre-made music, pre-packaged music for late night. And it is for budget cuts. The band leader was Fred Armisen, and even though he was gone most of the time, they would have he was still the band leader, and they'd have a lot of musicians sit in and either play guitar or drums. Here's here's everybody who's a part of the late night band. The keyboardist and the associate musical director was Eli Janney. They had Seth Jabbour on guitar, Marnie Stern on guitar, Sid Butler on bass, and Kimberly Thompson on drums. Then they also had people sit in every so often. Every time Fred was gone. Doing Portlandia or doing a movie or whatever. Or touring, because I believe he did a comedy tour with drums. I think, yeah, that's what he did. Or a music tour. I don't know. Thompson and Stern eventually left the band, and HG began playing with a succession of guest drummers. The group's last appearance was this previous episode, this last Thursday. And then they rank the bands. Oh, the NBC Orchestra is number 2. Number 1 was Late Night, The Most Dangerous Band / CBS Orchestra. I think I'd probably give them that. I'd probably give them number 1, and then NBC Orchestra, which is Carson's band, number 2. I still think Roots is probably number 2. In my mind, I say the number 1. They're just so fantastic. John Batiste and Stay Human. No, I think what makes a successful band. Let's get into that. In my eyes, a successful band is able to instantly start playing music. Like, first they play music well, but instantly start playing music if somebody gets up and just starts dancing. Not the audience, the interviewee gets up and starts dancing, or they play along to the Roots. They do this. If Jimmy's starts saying something that includes a little bit of music, all of a sudden you'll hear drums in the back, just a little hi-hat, a little bit of hi-hat, a little bit of snare coming from Questlove. Then you hear the Rooster pick up a little guitar. Everybody will chime in, or so. With that in mind, and then second, banter. If Jimmy can turn to the if Questlove can laugh at Jimmy's joke, or if what's his name, Paul, if Paul Schaefer can have a retort with David Letterman, have a whole conversation, If they can act as sidekick, if they're mostly in the sidekick position, like Paul Schaefer was, if they can act as sidekick and band leader, music aficionado, then they're doing the best job. They're doing a similar job on the same level as host. When it comes to John Batiste and Stay Human, and also the new guy for Late Show with Stephen Colbert, yes, they are good at playing their instruments. They're a good band. But man, everything else they do is just not good. Talking to Stephen, it just seems like as if there's no, like, they've never met. Truly. It's like if I got up on stage while the Foo Fighters were playing, and then I tried to have a banter with them. No, it wouldn't work. I mean, it would work because, Dave Grohl, he's a personable guy, and me, I'm a good host. But it just doesn't work. Then they say David Sanborn and Friends from Sunday Night / Night Music on NBC, which is a show I've never heard of. They didn't even put, holy cow, that's the end of the list. They didn't even put the Basic Cable Band from Conan. Are you kidding me? Ugh. Ridiculous. But late night's gone. I mean, late night, excuse me. Oh, God. Knock on wood. The HE band is gone. And they won't be coming back. But they did prepare some canned music, I believe. Prepared music, whatever, for the show. Speaking of things that are canned, listen, if you like what you heard here, head to the website, cpluscomedy.com, where I talk to your favorite famous people. You can also listen to the other podcasts. If you want to see a video version, if you want to see a video version of this show, go to youtube.com/cpluscomedy, where you can see video versions of the other shows. The Constitutionals podcast, which is the entertainment business news podcast, and LinkedIn Logs, which is the jobs podcast. You can follow us on TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at C+Comedy. Me on those platforms at Chad Black White. Thank you so much for listening. Bye.